Call it what it was. The Sun Devils offense had a perfect day against the Wildcats in their win over the weekend in the Duel in the Desert.
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. Shout out my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks to all of you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCalls for $20 off your first purchase. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a Victory Tuesday. In case you missed yesterday's episode, we had some huge news as Jordan Tyson was announced out, quote, indefinitely by Kenny Dillingham following the win in the duel in the desert over Arizona this past weekend. So instead of celebrating Victory Monday, we will be celebrating Victory Monday on a Tuesday, and there is a lot to celebrate. You have no excuse as a Sun Devil fan if you missed this year's Territorial Cup. It was a huge game. Got ASU to 10 wins. It snapped a 2-game skid in the Territorial Cup series against U of A, and it was a beatdown 49-7, and it wasn't even that close. It wasn't even that close, and that's a 42-point win. ASU did a lot of things right, but like we said at the top of the show, they beat down U of A on offense in perfect fashion. We're going to talk about the good and the bad from this game. We got takeaways, and we got game balls with a twist on what we normally do for our game balls. Let's talk about this offense, because my goodness, they did whatever they wanted to do, which we're not overly surprised at this point in the year when ASU was able to do that. This is just kind of their bread and butter, is they just do whatever they want on offense. They can run the football really well. They can pass the football really well. They've got multiple different players to be able to air the ball out to, multiple players to run the ball with. It's just one of those offenses where ASU has no shortage of weapons, but they obviously have their superstars. And they do have a big three in this offense with Sam Leavitt at quarterback, Cam Skattebo at running back, and Jordan Tyson at receiver. And the big three, they were in full display of this game. Sam Leavitt, one of the finest games of his young career, 17 of 22, 291 yards, 3 touchdowns, including a touchdown to Jordan Tyson, Xavier Guillory, and Shimon Mateer, 3 of his best friends this season. He even had Trenton Bourget come off the bench and throw a 64-yard touchdown to Derek Zubio, a walk-on receiver for the team. Super awesome to see. They did whatever they wanted in the air. Sam Leavitt aired it out. He's a beast. Cam Skattebo, a.k.a. the People's running back, another routine day in the office for him. 21 carries, 177 yards, and a hat trick on the ground. He also had 1 reception for 8 yards. Very casual 185-yard scrimmage day, 3 touchdown, and he didn't really see the ball in the fourth quarter because why would you keep him out there when you're kicking the you-know-what out of your opponent? I don't care if it's U of A. I don't care if it's Alabama. Yeah, I probably don't want to leave my guys out there to potentially risk injury. And then Jordan Tyson, wide receiver 1. 8 catches, 143 yards, and another score to his name. Tyson has been one of the hottest receivers in college football over the last month and a half to 2 months of the season. Ends the regular season, 75 receptions, 1,101 yards, 10 touchdown receptions, 14.7 yards per catch. That's pretty nuts. He's him. He's wide receiver 1. I've been hyped about him for a long time. Now that we have got to see him at his full potential, I feel pretty confident that the good times are only going to continue to roll. And, hopefully he does come back for 1 more year. I have a lot of faith. I'm holding out because it feels like there's way more for him to gain in returning for 1 more year than there is for him to leave early, but that's just me. Bottom line, though, this game, it was another game for the big three here. Cam Skattebo, let's look at the numbers for him because they are so good. For someone that missed a game this year, he only played 11 regular season games. That's what I was trying to say. And he still managed to put together 1,398 rushing yards, 5.7 yards per carry, 17 rushing touchdowns. He also had 468 yards through the air, 2 more scores, 13.4 yards per reception. So, very casual. What is that? About 1,800 scrimmage yards and 19 touchdowns with a game missing. He's been unbelievable. There's only been 2 games this year where he hasn't scored a touchdown. Other than that, he's got back-to-back hat tricks. He's got 3 on the year 3 hat tricks on the year. He's had back-to-back in big wins for the program. He's just everything you need. He's a perfect weapon for the Sun Devils, and you just can't have it any other way. Or you wouldn't have it any other way with the way that he's playing. He is a Heisman candidate, and that's with missing time. If he did not miss one game, he's still in the top 10 right now, somewhere in that range. He might be in the top 5. He may be even higher, because you're talking about a guy who would have 2,000 scrimmage yards, who probably would have led the Big 12 in major statistical categories for running backs, and would easily have double-digit touchdowns. He has 19. I would venture he would at least have 20, if not more than that. Even still, he still has a Heisman candidacy to his name. Jordan Tyson, we already talked about the numbers for him, and over the last month and a half, there hasn't been a receiver in college football who has been putting up the numbers that Jordan Tyson has. He's on a whole other level right now. Since the first bye week, so going all the way back to October 5th, the lowest amount of yards in a game he has was 76 yards. There was only 2 games where he didn't score a touchdown. He went over 100 yards in 4 of those games. He's unstoppable. There's no answer for him. And then Sam Leavitt, he's playing like one of the best freshmen in the country, redshirt or not regular, true freshman. He just graded out as the highest rated redshirt freshman in the country, higher than like Jeremiah Smith and anybody else. He has 13 touchdowns to a single interception in the last 5 games for ASU, and he's been terrific. This trio is going to lead ASU to a lot of wins this year, and they're getting production all over the place as well. Kyson Brown also went over 100 yards. They were able to get a ton of different guys involved in the passing game. Like I said, Guillory had a touchdown for himself. Shimon Mateer found himself in the end zone. Kyson Brown had another big reception. They did everything they wanted to do. Perhaps most impressively, wasn't even on offense. It was on defense, where they found a way to take one of the best offensive weapons in college football, one of the best players in college football, in Tetaiaroa McMillan, and limit him. And I mean limit him. 6 catches, 68 yards, 1 touchdown. That touchdown came in the first drive of the second half. They put the clamps on this guy. This guy had over 200 receiving yards against ASU in last year's Territorial Cup game. It appears that ASU kept receipts for that. They went down with ill intentions to make sure that T-Mac was not going to do any damage to them. And he did the most that anyone could for U of A in this game. He got their lone score, and they still lost by 42. There was nothing else either. Their leading rusher, Kendrick Riscano. My apologies if I pronounced that wrong. Kendrick, 11 carries, 55 yards. They had Quali Conley had 10 carries for 26 yards and 3 catches for 25 yards. Noah Fafita was 14 of 29 for 126 yards. Their run game averaged right around 3 yards a carry. It's pathetic. They just didn't do anything. ASU's defense absolutely smothered whatever the Wildcats wanted to try and do. But again, the most impressively was taking Tetaiaroa McMillan and just out of the equation. He's non-existent. He didn't do anything in this game. And that's a testament to how good ASU's defense was able to play in this game. One last thing I want to mention before we start to talk about the little bit of that in this game, and I'll spoil that for you now. We're going to be really nitpicky to find any bad from this game. Not just the defense, the offense, the defense, the coaching staff, everybody played a full 60 minutes of football. This was a huge question we had coming into this game. we had looked over the last handful of games against UCF, against K-State, and against BYU. Games that they very easily could have won big, especially the last two. K-State and BYU, they could have won those games by double-digit possessions. 2+ possessions, excuse me. Double-digit points is what I meant. I would love double-digit possessions, but that's neither here nor there. They should have beat those teams way more convincingly than they did. The problem was they let those teams get back in the second half, gain that confidence, and make the game just more close than it needed to be. Those should have been open and shut games for ASU, and they weren't. It went down to Tucson with a mindset and an attitude of, hey, this isn't going to continue to happen. We need to change this right now. And they did it. In fact, funny enough, to open the second half, U of A goes down the field and scores a touchdown. And what do? Shut them out the rest of the game. They don't allow any more points, and they just dominate the remainder of the way. Like, that clearly was a, oh, hell no moment for them. And they said, yeah, that's not happening. That is absolutely not happening. We're not doing this again. And you love to see it. It was a great game from the Sun Devils from start to finish, from the moment that the starters took the field to where the backups got onto the field and made some nice plays for themselves. Awesome game for the Sun Devils. They should be really, really happy with the way that everything turned out for them. Of course, this wasn't a perfect game. Again, spoiler alert, we are going to have to be pretty nitpicky, but there's a couple of things I want to bring up, and there's one big question that I have, and that's coming up next. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let me talk to you about our friends over at Game Time, and Game Time Picks is going to make getting tickets for your favorite events even easier than before. Game Time Picks, they are going to fluff out all of the stuff. You are only going to see incredible deals on great seats. You're not going to have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets thanks to the curating process for not just sports games, but concerts, comedy, theater events, and more. You can toggle their all-in pricing feature as well and see the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. You can get a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy, so you know what to expect when you arrive. Of course, their lowest price guarantee means that Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find tickets in the same section and row for less, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's Locked On College for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Wherever you get those shows, like, subscribe, turn on notifications. I appreciate each and every single one of you for tuning in to make Locked On Sun Devils your first listen of the day. Let's talk about the bad. And there's not a lot here. This was a very well-played game for the Sun Devils from start to finish. Very well executed. We already talked about a lot of the good, so we got to get a little nitpicky. There's really only two things I can nitpick about. There's one legitimate concern, but you already know what it's going to be. And then I have one question for ASU. To get nitpicky, could you have forced more turnovers? Noah Fifita has been a very turnover-prone quarterback this year. He ended the year with 12 interceptions. He only had 3 games this year where he did not throw an interception. And unfortunately, this was one of the games. And it's not like he had a great day. He completed under 50% of his passes. He was abysmal from start to finish. He had barely 4 yards per attempt in this game. Take away his touchdown pass to Tetaiaroa McMillan at the start of the second half. And I mean, this was one of the worst days that he has had as a starting quarterback for U of A. And that's without turning the ball over. Was there an opportunity for you to get some more, potential chances on offense? I don't know if there's really any that come to mind off the top of my head, but maybe there were some that just weren't there. I know that there was very early in the game, T-Mac was getting some pretty decent catches and yards after the reception and everything because ASU was trying to shoulder tackle. That was really frustrating, but guess what? That got clamped down and that got erased very quickly. ASU moved on, moved forward, started wrapping up and eliminating those big plays that U of A was trying to get going for themselves. In fact, outside of a 28-yard pickup for Tetaiaroa McMillan, which was just tons of run after catch, there was not another play that went over 20 yards. There was a 19-yard play, a couple of 10-yard plays, a 16-yard catch, a 12-yard catch, and that's it. ASU's defense did what they needed to do. Could they have forced more turnovers? I don't know. I'd have to go back and look. You would think that there's probably some place where they could have. You would think, but like I said, that really feels like you're nitpicking. The second nitpick here, you won 49-7. Could it have been more? This kind of felt like another 70-7 on the horizon after the first half when you were up 35-0. This definitely felt like a, hey, remember us? Remember that beatdown we gave you? We're going to give you another one, and this one's going to be a little more disrespectful and with a little more importance to us than the last one was. And they didn't slow down at all. I would not say that ASU slowed down in this game. But it did feel like ASU started missing out on some opportunities. I don't know. A 42-point win against your in-state rival, your biggest rival, on the road to close the year, pretty darn big. Could it have been bigger? Again, I have to go back and look, but I don't really think that was the case. In fact, they could have lost by, or they could have won by 3 less points if arguably the best kicker in college football, Tyler Loop, doesn't shank a 50-yard field goal on back-to-back attempts. The dude nailed a 60-some-odd yard field goal this year, pushed the first attempt to the left, and then pushed it right, and didn't make either of them. So it could have been a 49-10 game. It also could have been a 52-7 game, which will lead into pretty much the only legitimate bad thing to talk about here, kicking. But it's been all year. We've talked about it all year long. ASU can't kick the football. For whatever reason, they are just completely inept in being able to convert field goals and get 3 points when a drive stalls out. It's at a point, I said this jokingly at a watch party I had with some family and friends, that at this point, like, why even bother? Why even bother trying to kick field goals? If you're on the plus side of the field and it's, I don't know, 4th and 7 or 4th and 8, are you going to try a 45-yard field goal where you know the odds are really, really against you? ASU, beyond 40 yards this year, ASU is 3 of 8. And they are 3 of 7 from 40 to 49 yards. In fact, beyond 30 yards, they are, let me do that math, 4 of 11. 4 of 11 beyond 30 yards. That's so pathetic. Let's just call it what it is. That's pathetic. So why even bother? It's 3 points. And ASU is typically not winning games by 3 points this year. In fact, if we look at their games this year, most of them are either really close or pretty separated. Let's look over the last few games. BYU 28-23, no field goals in that game. Kansas State 24-14. They made a field goal, but that was only their first field goal attempt of a 5-game stretch to end the year. Oklahoma State, when they first came back, 42-21. UCF 35-31. Sure, you would have liked a field goal in a couple of those games, but you didn't need them. In their losses, too, Texas Tech 30-22. Cincinnati was 24-14. The games are closer, but field goals aren't necessarily winning or losing you games right now. The only game where that was evident was Texas State, where you won 31-28, and that was in week 3. I just don't know that kicking field goals is worth it at this point for ASU. It feels like a much more of a missed opportunity than it is to actually get points out of it. That's how big of a liability your special teams unit is. And it was no different in this game when ASU trotted out Parker Lewis to attempt a field goal, and he shanked it. He shanked it. Like, it can't happen. It can't happen for a team that is contending for a conference championship and a college football playoff appearance. You have got to be able to make field goals. There's just no other way around it. By the way, it was a 21-yard field goal. It wasn't even a long one. It was a little angled. I don't care, dude. An 8-year-old kid who plays soccer could have made that thing. It was pathetic. It was honestly hilarious that they missed it. The words out of my mouth before that happened was, yeah, have him make the field goal and let's build up some confidence. Missed the field goal, and I said, I don't want to see another one the rest of the year. Because what's the point? You can't convert a 21-yard field goal. There's no point in even trying at that point. So, curious what you guys think. Let me know in the comments. Do you want to see a field goal attempt the rest of the year? I could go with or without it. Like, even if the game was on the line, I don't know if I trust my guys to kick a field goal at this point. I would rather try a Hail Mary. I would rather try and convert a 4th and 14 than try a 35-yard field goal. That's where we're at right now. One thing I want to finish up with before we head over into the takeaways, I just want to pose a quick question. I don't want to spend too much time on this because I spent a lot of time on yesterday's show talking about it with Jordan Tyson, so check it out if you haven't seen it. Tyson's out indefinitely, undisclosed injury, something upper body. Who's wide receiver one? Who is going to step up with Tyson sidelined for at least the Big 12 championship game, potentially the rest of the year? We don't really have a distinct timeline right now of when he will be returning. Easy answer is probably Xavier Guillory, but we got a lot of stuff to figure out. One of the things I have said pretty consistently throughout the year is I wish that Sam Leavitt would have more of an established connection with some of the other receivers on this team. And now you're in a situation where it's like, it would have been nice if we knew where the ball was going. So, I don't know. Maybe they just turn into a super run-heavy team, or maybe a guy like Guillory or Stovall or somebody else just totally pops off. We'll wait and see. But I got some takeaways coming up for you next. I got some game balls to round out the show, and it's going to be a little different than how we normally hand out game balls. That's coming up next. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Get ready to take on the NFL action with America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets if you win that $5 bet. You can make that on anything, by the way. That can be a player prop, a spread, a money line, whatever. FanDuel also gives you everything you need to place a live bet on the NFL all in one place. So if you get that hunch in the middle of the game, you're feeling good about something, you can check out the latest stats, you can view a live play-by-play, and so much more on the same place and the same page and the same location where you are going to be placing your bets. Make the most out of your hunch. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. New customers, again, join, you get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 wins. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. One last time, I appreciate each and every single one of you for tuning in to make Locked On Sun Devils your first listen of the day. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this bad boy up with some takeaways. I got 4 takeaways, as per usual. 2 on offense, 1 on defense, 1 overall. I have 4 game balls to hand out. It's 2 on offense, 2 on defense, but it's not the way that we normally do this. Start with those takeaways. Takeaway number 1. And we led off with this at the top of the show. This was a near perfect performance from the offense. But my takeaway here is that ASU has an almost perfectly balanced offense. We've seen it for most of the year. We've seen that Cam Skattebo can literally and figuratively carry the Sun Devils to wins this year. But we've also seen that guys behind him can step up. ASU has run for just over 2,300 yards this year. Skattebo has 1,398 of those. So they still have 900-ish yards from some of their other guys. They're still getting performances. ASU has also passed for almost 2,700 yards this year. Even with 1,100 of those coming from Tyson, they're still getting chunk performances from other guys. But to be exact, 2,698 passing yards to 2,340 rushing yards. 22 passing touchdowns to 25 rushing touchdowns. Balanced. It is a perfectly balanced offense. It's perfectly balanced as all things should be. It has led ASU to a lot of wins. And with the postseason here and anything possible for a team that is going to be playing at their best possible level to see how far they can get, who knows what the future has for this team, what the possible ceiling is for this Sun Devils team. It's very exciting right now, and it's thanks to a balanced offense that we saw on display against U of A. They passed for 362 yards. They ran for 284 yards. They had 4 passing touchdowns. They had 3 rushing touchdowns. Whatever they wanted to do, they did it. Chunk plays, whatever. ASU is perfectly balanced as all things should be. Takeaway number 2. Sam Leavitt, Cam Skattebo, Jordan Tyson. Not only are they a triplet, a perfect triplet for ASU, these 3 are deserving of major college football national awards. They truly are. Cam Skattebo, Heisman. I'm not saying he wins it, and quite frankly, it is a 2-man race between Ashton Jeanty and Travis Hunter. He should get votes, and he should get more than a handful of votes. I don't know how many first place, if any. I don't know how many second place, if any. Skattebo should be, in my opinion, he should finish no worse than 5th. I would say he should be a top 3 candidate right now. Even missing a game, that's how good he's been this year. Sam Leavitt. It's so tough, man, with quarterback awards to figure out how to handle out in the Maxwell Award and stuff like that. Leavitt's been terrific. Like, you can look at Will Howard at Ohio State and Dylan Gabriel at Oregon and Cade Klubnik at Clemson, and God, who else is having a good year? There's been a lot of really good Shadur Sanders, obviously, at Colorado. There's been a lot of really good quarterback performances this year across the country. Sam Leavitt's not that far behind any of them. Consider he missed a game and he still managed to throw 21 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, right about 63% completion, 8.5 yards per attempt, another 4 scores on the ground. It's been terrific. He has been terrific. You give him that one game he missed, I don't know what he does, but, I mean, you could add on a couple more touchdowns. He's not turned the ball over this year. Who knows? But Sam Leavitt definitely worthy of some major praise. Jordan Tyson, there's not been a better receiver in college football over the last 2 months, in my opinion. I also am wearing my rose-colored glasses when I say that. What I can tell you is I don't know if there are 5 receivers who have been definitively better than Tyson over the last 2 months. I would have loved for him to have been a Biletnikoff finalist. I understand why he wasn't. He had an argument. We'll see if he can build on that next year. Third takeaway, the defense. They have been step up to the occasion. It's no secret, I've said on this podcast a million times, this is not a bend but don't break defense. This is a step up to the occasion defense. One of the things that we've seen them do all year, step up to the occasion, is find a way to contain but not stop some of the best weapons in the Big 12. Tetaiaroa McMillan might have been the best weapon they have seen all year. They contained him better than they contained anybody else this year. RJ Harvey, another one of the best weapons, had a really good day against ASU. Taj Brooks, really good, had a good day against ASU. Devin Neal had a really good day against ASU. Tetaiaroa McMillan, arguably the best offensive player in the Big 12. He easily had the worst day of any of the legitimate superstars that ASU had to play this year in the Big 12. That's awesome. To see that that's the way you close out the year. Like, even if T-Mac didn't play on U of A, let's say he played on Cincinnati, and he's still the best player in the Big 12, arguably, like he is now. I mean, you're talking about a standout performance. The standout performance from the defense this year against one of the best weapons that you've seen all year. It just so happened to be against U of A, which makes it that much sweeter, but it was a great way to end the season. Last takeaway, and then we're going to hand out some game balls. ASU backed their word. They said, hey, we're done only playing a half or only playing 35 or 40 minutes of game time. We're playing a full 60. They played a full 60. You love to see it. I understand it's U of A. I understand they're not a good football team. But you need to understand it's U of A. This is a rivalry game. If you think that U of A was not trying their hardest at any point during the game, you'd be wrong. Now, sometimes it didn't feel that way. That was way more of a coaching thing than anything else. If you think there was a single U of A football player that left anything not on the field, you'd be wrong. Those guys tried their hardest. They were let down and they were beat down. But ASU, they played 60 minutes. Game balls, this is going to be a little bit different. This is not game balls for the best performances because, wow, look at that. Cam Skattebo, Jordan Tyson, blah, 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 get the game balls. We do that every week. So instead, we're going to have a little bit of fun here. These 4 game balls, 2 on offense, 2 on defense, I am giving them to players that we have not talked enough about this year, if at all, and guys who just had some super memorable plays for the Territorial Cup, which is where we start off with game ball number 1, Trenton Bourget. Bourget is going to go down as one of the most beloved Sun Devil players ever. And he's not going to have very many notable numbers in the record books for ASU. In fact, this was the only game that he threw a pass in this year. 2 of 3 for 71 yards and a touchdown, including a 64-yard long to Derek Eusebio, who is getting game ball number 2. Eusebio's first career reception as a walk-on for the Sun Devils went for a 64-yard touchdown. Dude was weaving in and out of traffic like he was a Bronco in I can't remember where it was, driving on the wrong side of the freeway in the 90s. Dude was phenomenal. He looked great. Super excited when I saw Derek Eusebio get that touchdown catch. Even better that he caught it from Trenton Bourget. Bourget, congratulations in your last regular season appearance with the Sun Devils that you were able to get on the field and throw a huge touchdown that will be remembered for a long time with Sun Devil fans in your hometown against the in-state rivals. Awesome. Props to Derek Eusebio for making your first touchdown a 64-yarder, your first catch a 64-yard touchdown against the in-state rivals. Defensively, I'm going to give credit to LT Welsh, who I believe has gotten the game ball this year, but he did get the only turnover for the Sun Devils in this game with a 16-yard interception. It was sweet. It wasn't off the feet, a big deal. It was still just really cool to see, and it was like the, yes, we did get a turnover. Like, I was hoping we didn't end the game without a turnover. We didn't. LT Welsh, congratulations. And the final game ball. Hopefully you saw this coming. Jacob Richie-Bradshaw, the man, the reformed Wildcat, the man who identified the sins of his past for playing at U of A, comes to the good guys, beats the bad guys in their hometown. And who gets to stick that pitchfork in the middle of the field? It's Jacob Richie-Bradshaw. To the dismay of all the U of A fans who hate his guts now, to the dismay of all of the people in the media who did no shortage of bashing Jacob Richie-Bradshaw before the game and after the game. And you know who you are. You know who you are. And I'm not even going to give you the shout out. You know who you are, who trashed Jacob Richie-Bradshaw. He stomped your team and he planted that pitchfork on your precious little A. I'll give you an L to hold with it too. Jacob, love you, man. So happy for you. So happy that your family got to see you overcome all the hate that you received that day and do something amazing for this program. How'd you guys feel about this win? Should have been bigger? Did I nail it with the game balls? Who would you have given a game ball to? Let me know in the comments. You can hit me up on Twitter at RichieBrads36, and the podcast is there at LO_Sun Devils. Wherever you're getting your shows, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you'll get an update whenever we post new content. Stay in touch by following me on Twitter at RichieBrads36 and the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. I appreciate each and every single one of you for tuning in to make us your first listen of the day. I have a special shout out, as always, for my everydayers who are here every day. It's going to be an interesting day. We have another college football playoff ranking coming out tonight. This is going to be a pretty big one. It is I think it's the second to last one now, with the conference championship coming up on the weekend. It should be about 6 o'clock again. We will be doing another live watch party with it. I will have a link up later on in the day. Join in. We're gonna vibe. We're gonna have a good time, and hopefully, I don't have to get really pissed off with the result of an unfair ranking. Hopefully, College Football Playoff Committee gets it right this time. But I'll see you guys tonight. If not, I'll check you guys tomorrow as we continue getting ready to preview the Big 12 championship game on Saturday against Iowa State. I'll see you guys later. Until next time, you keep it locked right here on Locked On